Who are you?
I am a naturopathic doctor. It's my duty to educate people on how to party responsibly and not get burnt out. Your endocannabinoid system is touching every physiological system in your body. Our own government has a patent on CBD.
Your first MDMA experience.
It allows you to experience self-love, self-acceptance, and then love towards others. What did I get out of meditation retreat and psychedelics? In a nutshell,
Welcome to today's episode of Getting to Know You. I'm your host, Cameron Edward Benton, and on today's episode, I have the great pleasure of introducing you to Dr. Adrian Mehmedi. Dr. Adrian is a naturopathic doctor and a veteran partier who is the recent creator and founder of Vitamin R, a really cool supplement that is designed to replenish the important neurotransmitters such as dopamine and serotonin after your night, weekend, or week-long session of partying. As anybody who else has been to the music festival scene or a rave, you know how important it is to replenish those important resources, whether you're not sleeping all night or whether you're dancing until dawn or not doing the best job of drinking water and eating food. It's really important to replenish the supplements, and that's why he created Vitamin R, and it's a really, really amazing breakthrough tool that I hope you check out. That said, Dr. Adrian and I have a really cool conversation. We talk about the importance for him with cannabis. We talk about the good and the dark side of that substance. We talk about our love and the magic and healing of the festival world. And both of us talk about the transformational power that has had on the effects of our lives, as well as his personal journey to going back to school and becoming a naturopathic doctor and ultimately creating this really cool substance, Vitamin R. And with that said, everything in this podcast should not be taken as medical advice. It is for education and entertainment purposes only. And without further ado, here is Getting to Know Dr. Adrian Mehmedi. Who are you?
I love this way of starting off. What a great question. What an open-ended, beautiful question. I would say I am a naturopathic doctor, but I'm a unique kind of a doctor. I have a very interesting background with business and finance and sales. And then I switched careers and I went into naturopathic medicine, went back to school. And I'm not really seeing patients directly one-on-one that much with my time. So that's not really what I'm doing as a traditional doctor. I'm more so trying to combine like my business background with the medicine and create businesses in the health and wellness field. So I'd say that in a nutshell.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And for the audience, what's your name?
Adrian Mehmedi, Dr. Adrian Mehmedi. I'm a naturopathic doctor.
Awesome. And Dr. Adrian and I, we met actually at a music festival, and he was telling me about this really cool supplement that he created for festivalers and partiers and things of that nature. It's something called Vitamin R, and he's combined a lot of your expertise with both the medical industry and the business industry and partying to create something for festival goers to actually recover and get all of the serotonin and dopamine and just body recovery back after all this. What inspired you to create that vitamin?
Yeah, thank you. So I'm really excited about this project. It's my first kind of entry into combining, my backgrounds of business and medicine all together, and really to help the community that I love so much, the music festival community that's given me so much over the years. Honestly, I went to my first festival, EDC Chicago 2013, the one and only year they had EDC Chicago. And so that was 11 years ago. And that was the first time I ever experienced the music festival like that. First time I ever experienced MDMA. And it just blew me open, and just, never experienced such a level of love and connection and community and unity and just, amazing, and blew me open. And I've never been the same since then, and I've really enjoyed going to this musical festival community, and it's done a lot for me. Made a lot of great friends, had some of the best experiences, listen to the best music, dancing, all of it, is a form of medicine. It's like all of it put together with the community, all of that, and over the years I've realized, like, man, this come down that comes with taking MDMA, Molly, ecstasy, whatever names you want to put with it, it's not fun. It's not a good time. And in my Instagram, I've done a little poll that 80% of people are experiencing that come down when they take
Wow.
MDMA. And I'm like, man, that's rough. So what can be done about that? It's common for a lot of people to try taking like 5-HTP or, magnesium or maybe some B vitamins, things like that to try afterwards to try to help build themselves up, feel a little bit better. So I started just playing around with it. And over the last couple of years, I've been working on this formula. Um, Thanks to my knowledge in naturopathic medical school, we learned about biochemistry and botanical medicine and all the different natural therapeutics beyond that, homeopathy, nutrition, chiropractic medicine and hydrotherapy and on and on. But I really got into botanical medicine and just formulating, and working on formulas. And so I said, what can be done to help replenish your serotonin and your dopamine that get, pretty depleted from consuming this? And so I made this formula, 23 different ingredients, all put together that you take the morning after. And so far, the reviews have been amazing. People have been really seeing a difference from, the formula and taking the capsules. And I'm really excited about getting it out there to the community because, it's really needed. A lot of people are,
Mm-hmm.
partying, doing what they want to do. And that's a big topic we could talk about. A big passion of mine is harm reduction. That's the whole idea behind this business. It's not just a supplement, but it's about educating people on how to party responsibly, because like you mentioned before we started recording, I'm a doctor, but I am also a partier. And how do I combine those things together? It's like, it's my duty to educate people on how to party responsibly, and not get burnt out
Mm-hmm.
and really sick and damage to your body and, all of that over the years of doing it. So yeah, that's that in a nutshell. We can take that wherever you'd like from there.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to dive a little bit like further into that. I mean, you're talking about harm reduction, and at a festival or at a big party, we do go through these big experiences. Not just from whatever somebody might be doing there, but also just the pure amount of energy. Right, if you're there for 3 days or 5 days, you're usually not sleeping very much. You're staying up all night. You're literally getting 30,000 plus steps a day. You're
Right.
dancing. You're probably not eating the healthiest, even if you're aiming to do pretty well, right?
Right.
You're kind of just going through all these things. So I'm curious, so what are your top tips for uh, maintaining your health and like not burning out through the festival season?
Yep. Yep. Great question. I mean, it's all of those things that you just said. It's just being conscious of how much the lifestyle factors really play into how you feel during the festival and then after. It's like, of course, the MDMA is doing something to our brain. It's not, from what all the research shows, it's not causing neurotoxic damage to the neurons. It's not doing that if it's a clean source of product,
Mm-hmm.
So, but it's still stressing out the system. Something's happening, in the brain. But it's not only the substance you're taking, it's all these other lifestyle factors. It's like, how do you think you're going to feel if you don't eat enough food for 3 days, if you don't sleep enough, if you way overexert your body, if you don't drink enough water, if you don't have enough electrolytes? Even without any MDMA, you do all those things, you're not going to feel so great, So it's
Yeah.
like being really conscious about that and doing what you can. It's like, it's hard. If you go to festivals, it's hard sometimes to eat enough food. It's just, you have to really like force yourself sometimes to be like, I'm not even that hungry right now, but like I got to
Mm-hmm.
eat because my body needs the calories, because I'm really big on water fasting. That's another topic we could talk about in depth.
Hmm.
Water only fasting, and that's a time when your body's supposed to be resting, and not overly physically exerting yourself. So not eating a lot of food and really 30,000 steps plus to your body, they
Mm-hmm.
don't mix very well. So we need to. It's the basics. In naturopathic medicine, we talk a lot about building the foundations of health, like building up the basics. You start with the foundations, and my big kind
Mm-hmm.
of big ones are water and hydration, and that's huge. And that's just this is an everyday life. Everyday life, these things are important, But at a festival, music, concert scene, whatever, it's even more important because you're like really overtaxing your body. So you have to really like consciously, make up for it. So the water and hydration is huge. And it's not only the quality of water, the quantity of water, and then the electrolytes are massive. That's something that I've last few years have realized how important it really is. You can drink the amount of water, but if you're not getting in the salt, the electrolytes into your body, you can cause damage. Actually, I mean, you can kill yourself from drinking too much water, alone. You can drink 2 gallons of water and go in a sauna, and that could kill you. And that's from hyponatremia, which means low salt. Hypo, low, natremia is salt. So you have low salt in your body, and your cells can literally explode, and that's what kills you.
Wow.
So that's why that's the only time that MDMA can be dangerous, is if you're overheating your body, hyperthermia, or hyponatremia. You're way overhydrating. And there's been cases of that, where people have like way overhydrated at festivals, and because they're told like drink enough water, and they drink way too much water without the electrolytes, and then they end up dying from that, which is crazy. But there's been cases like that. So it's like simple stuff. One of my favorite quotes is, simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. It's a Leonardo da Vinci quote, and I love it because the simplest stuff sometimes has the most profound impact. And so drinking enough water with electrolytes is key. Sleeping, and we all know that's another hard thing to do sometimes at festivals, is sleep enough. But it's like the few hours really add up, and it's like if you could choose to stay up all night or maybe get 3-4 hours of sleep, maybe the 3-4 hours of sleep is going to be the thing that saves you and can, keep you going through the marathon of some of these festivals that, you have to pace yourself. If you don't, your body's going to just literally give up and you'll pass out at some point, So the water, the sleep, and you got to do what you got to do with that, at a festival. I have sleep supplements that I really love that I think, you got to take whatever it is. Like I use this one by Symbiotica. That's their sleep formula that I love. It's the best one I found out there. And I brought that with me to the Lightning in a Bottle, where we just were recently. When I'm at the end of my night, I'm ready to sleep. I just, pump a bunch of that in my mouth, and helps me knock out, because otherwise it can be tough depending on whatever you've been doing, and substances that might still be lingering, and all the combination factors, and sound, and how close are you to the music, and is there neighbors that are pounding the music at 6 a.m. and you're like, so you might need earplugs as a practical tip at a festival, and then eating enough food, and that can be really tough. And that's where some other ideas I have for like other products on the road, or kind of like meal replacement type of products, where you can just like squeeze, like a squeeze, thing, where it's like you don't have to worry about eating or making something or mixing it in with water or whatever, but just kind of like a squeeze pouch, to be able to get the nutrients in, the protein, all the stuff that we need. Because it can be hard, like honestly, like I don't know sometimes how I would even eat at a festival if it wasn't for cannabis. Thankful to cannabis, appetite stimulation effects that it has, because that definitely is the lifesaver sometimes. So cannabis is a big part of my story as well. I mean, it's what kind of led to my spiritual awakening, you could say. It was the first plant that made me realize, like, oh, the government's been lying to me about this. Like, are they lying to me about other things? Like, maybe. And I just started digging down the rabbit hole, and that's what led me to natural medicine, is cannabis. And so that's kind of my story with that. But what else? At the festival, practical tips, I would say just know your limits, know your body, know yourself, and knowing like how much you can really handle, and like not getting to that limit and crossing the line, but maybe like chilling out a little bit, and like, okay, I know I'm not so good if I don't sleep at all. Maybe I should not stay up all night and get a few hours of sleep, and just being conscious with yourself. And It's all about knowing your body, knowing how you feel, and like, oh, I'm feeling really depleted right now. I'm feeling kind of headachy. Maybe I should get some electrolytes in me, and then I will feel good,
Mm-hmm.
so I can keep going. So I'd say those are the top kind of things that come to mind right now.
Yeah. For electrolytes, are there any particular brands or things like that that you like? Is it?
Yeah, it's. I mean, there's so much out now with the electrolytes. These powder, like these packet electrolyte packs, have just
Mm-hmm.
exploded in these recent years. Um, I don't use any of the packs, honestly. I feel like I've tried them and they're cool. They're interesting, but I wonder about them. I just wonder.
Hmm.
It's like I'm trying to get the electrolytes, the salt, the minerals out of it, and that's it. And
Mm-hmm.
all the extra
Yeah.
stuff they add in there, I just don't know. I
Yeah.
don't know about like
Yeah.
taking that stuff all the time if that's necessary. Like what I do for electrolytes is Himalayan pink salt and a lot of
Hmm.
it. Himalayan pink salt, when I do my water fast, I'll do like a half of a teaspoon of Himalayan pink salt just right in my mouth, and then I wash it down with water. And that's a little intense. I know a lot of people don't want to do it like that, but if mixing it in with water, I don't really love, because then it's kind of like salty water, and I don't like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but I take that half a teaspoon of Himalayan pink salt like every few hours on a water
Wow.
fast, and you can't overdo it with salt. I mean, our bodies are literally comprised of salt, especially good salt. And so we need these minerals. It's like charges up your battery so much. It's unbelievable. And I feel it when I'm on my water
Hmm.
fast. It's like, I feel very just like depleted, kind of low energy, headachy, and then I take some salt and it's like, and I'm like
Mm-hmm.
supercharged, so same
Yeah.
thing at a music
Yeah.
festival. You're pushing your body to these limits, sweating, extra physical exertion. And so I remember like when I was down at Envision Costa Rica, it was so hot and humid there, and I was sweating so much, and definitely wasn't replenishing the electrolytes as needed, and I could feel it. And day 5, 6, 7 at Envision, it's a 7-day festival. I was really getting
Wow.
taxed, and like got to the point of where I thought the idea of like, oh, I need some salt. And I'd go around to the food vendors and have them add salt into my water just so that I could get it, feel, right away, the difference. So
Yeah.
it's the simple things like that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm a big fan of Element. Have you tried their stuff at
Yeah,
all?
it's a good one. I'd say out
Yeah.
of all the ones, that's my favorite that I've seen. There's a few other ones that I've seen advertised. I haven't tried them yet, but the ingredients look good.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Element is one of the best ones, I'd say. Like Liquid IV is not good. I would say it's too much
Yeah.
sugar. It's not ideal. But
Yeah.
yeah,
That's
like,
what I've
yeah.
that's what I've gotten from Element or Elementi is how it's spelled for anybody looking it up, and it's pure salt, like you said, but it's just like broken down into like the kind of ideal ratios and things of that nature. And I've used that with I think every festival that I've gone to since 2021 because it's
Mm,
so um, I just put it in my hydro pack while I'm
mm,
going around and drinking out of there, and I'll kind of like mix it up. So I'll do usually like one or two of those for hydro packs, and one just completely water because I find that I can also be like too salt inundated, where it's like my body's like you actually just need more water in your system relative to the amount of salt, so that I can
right,
actually cool you off or move
right.
things through your system or whatever it is. But I also notice when I'm using more electrolytes, I am not needing to use the bathroom as often. I have less like thirst quenching where I'll see some people just go through gallons and gallons of water. And I'm just like, no, I'm good. But like
Yeah,
my body's actually getting hydrated versus,
yeah.
the stuff just running through me or like you said, just kind of filling up my pores or just going in and out of the system.
Right, right, for sure. No, I mean, the whole water topic is so deep. It's one of my favorite, biggest passions. I could talk about it for hours and
Hmm.
hours, honestly. The types of water that you can get into and drinking, like at home, that's a whole big discussion. But at a
Hmm.
festival, you're kind of limited with what they have there, what you can bring or whatever. But
Yeah.
yeah, but the electrolytes, what I have found that is the best recently, and they're kind of pricey and they're not that practical because they're in a glass vial, but they're the Quinton
Mm.
minerals, and
Okay.
they're like sea minerals, and so it's like really legit. filtered, from the ocean, like exact proportion of our same minerals that are in our blood.
Yeah.
And I tried them and they're legit, it's amazing, but I don't know about, I brought those to LIB, but I don't know about bringing, like carrying those around with you and stuff. And you got to break the
Yeah.
glass and it's just like weird, but it
Yeah.
is legit.
Those are pretty tough.
Yeah. They
Yeah.
are.
Those are from Quicksilver, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. 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 I've seen those. Those are definitely really good. I mean, their Quicksilver stuff is awesome.
Yeah.
I guess for the audience's sake, like, you talked about being a naturopathic doctor, and that is something that there are regulations around, but there are places where there's maybe not as many, and people can kind of throw that term around. And a lot of people might not know what that is if you're like just a witch doctor, or you're just prescribing random stuff to people, or just, you're just taking on that title. So like, what is a naturopathic doctor compared to a medical doctor?
Yeah, excellent question. And yeah, it really depends. I mean, even here on the West Coast, I know you're in Washington, I'm in San Diego. Even here, you can't assume that people know. I mean, it's a lot more well known. We're licensed here. Even in Washington, we have full scope. We can prescribe pharmaceuticals. Insurance takes us. I mean, It's a whole different ballgame versus in other states, where it's not even licensed at all. And you can't call yourself a doctor. You can't, even practice medicine. So it just, what it is in a nutshell is it's natural holistic medicine. Naturopathic doctors are the experts in natural medicine. We go to 4 years of medical school. The first 2 years are identical, very similar to a regular medical doctor. We take biochemistry and physiology and pathology, and we do the cadavers of the anatomy lab and all of it. Mm-hmm. And then the second 2 years are where we kind of differ, where we start learning about natural ways of therapeutics. So homeopathy, botanical medicine, herbs, nutrition, we go real deep into. I learned all the chiropractic adjustments that a chiropractor learns, because I went to school with chiropractors, acupuncturists, and naturopathic doctors. And then, whatever you get into kind of after that, like my big thing is mental health and, psychedelics for healing. So that's something we can talk about in depth for a while. And so, the whole idea behind it is naturopathic medicine is getting to the root cause of what is causing somebody's issues. Why are they having these issues? Instead of just covering up the symptoms with medications or surgeries or whatever. And there's always a time and a place for conventional medicine. I don't ever want to talk like, sound like I'm talking bad about it. We need them. We're very grateful for, the hospitals. I get in a car accident, please take me to the hospital. It's not the time for herbs, but chronic disease, like the regular medical doctors are just not taught a lot about health. They're stuck in a system that's very much controlled by the big pharmaceutical companies and the insurance companies. And they're just teaching them about pathology in school. And then they're like, here's this pill for this ill, there's a pill for every ill. And that's, what they're taught. They're not taught about nutrition at all. They're not taught about our body's endocannabinoid system. That's the most important physiological system in our body. It's literally the conductor of the orchestra of our body. And they're not taught about that. I mean, it was just recently discovered, 1990, relatively recent, but
yeah, year after I was born. So
it's a big deal. I'm really into endocannabinoid, medicine, and seeing it help amazing, amounts of people. And we've been lied to about this plant, for thousands of years. So anyway, natural medicine is all about treating people, not diseases. There could be somebody, 100 different people with migraines, and 100 different reasons why each person is getting their migraines. And so it's not like, oh, you have migraines, here's this pill. Oh, that didn't work, let's try this pill. It's like, well, maybe you are really dehydrated and you don't get enough electrolytes, and you do that and your migraines can be way better. Maybe you are magnesium deficient and just don't eat enough food that you need to be eating. So that's most people, by the way, magnesium deficiency, because even if you eat enough greens, it's not in the soils like how it used to be. So that's one of those things that I think pretty much everybody needs to supplement, is magnesium, by the way. So yeah, natural medicine is just about helping people realize that they have the power to help heal themselves. Like our bodies naturally heal themselves. We cut our hand, who's doing the healing? Like, how is the hand healing? You don't need to do anything. You just need to bandage it, dress it up, whatever. Like, how is that healing? So that happens on all levels in the inside of us. So
Yeah.
just about providing the body the tools that it needs to be able to heal itself. And, so that's the basics of it. We can go in whatever direction you'd like from there.
Yeah, well, you talked about your love for the cannabinoid system, and you talked before earlier about finding cannabis as this very healing substance that I believe, from what we talked about earlier, that kind of like led you to
Yep.
becoming a doctor. So I'm curious, can you just share more about that journey? Like, what was it that you were discovering about cannabis in particular? Like, what was it you were learning? And like, how did that lead to a journey of actually going back to school and becoming a naturopathic doctor?
Yeah. So for me, I'd have an interesting story and history with cannabis. I didn't touch the plant until I was 26 years old. And, I came at it from a different angle of like, I was, I was bought into the whole old stigma of like lazy stoners and, people that smoke weed that are just, whatever, need to get high to feel good about themselves, whatever I thought, just this negative stigma in my head. No, like intelligent, successful people smoke cannabis, like all this stuff. And then I started working at this company, and this guy was a PhD in chemistry, and his professor, back in Illinois, his professor was at Northwestern, and he had won the Nobel Peace Prize in chemistry. And he told me that his professor had 2 ounces of cannabis in his office and would smoke with his students. And I was like, whoa,
Wow.
That got me thinking like, maybe there are intelligent, successful people that consume this plant. Like, And then I started digging and watching documentaries and reading books about it, and just like blown away. Just like, whoa, we have been so lied to about this plant. This plant's been used all around the world for thousands of years for healing, so only in the last 80 or so years did it become illegal in the US, because of political reasons and whatever, all the stuff related with hemp. And, fun fact, Henry Ford's first car, the Model T, was made out of hemp and ran on hemp fuel. And
Wow.
most people don't know that. And it's like hemp can literally replace plastic, fuel, paper, clothing. I mean, all these different industries. And so, of course, it's like a lot of the people in charge were like, we don't want this happening. No. And so they demonized it. And then that started back in the 20s and 30s. And then the history, just got worse and worse. And then by the 70s, Nixon came along and was like, Controlled Substances Act. This is a Schedule I drug.
Yeah.
No medical use, high potential for abuse. Like, it's just so silly, and yet it hasn't killed a single person, And so it's just like, so yeah, once I learned about that, tried it for myself, and was like, wow, I love how this makes me feel, way more than the way alcohol makes me feel. At that point, I was drinking, quite a bit, and like on the weekends, like most people, heavy binge drinking, like, I don't know, crazy. And blacking out like all the time. And like, I learned, by the way, in school, when you black out from drinking, every time you do that, that's a chemical concussion to your brain.
Wow.
Like, ooh, that's not good. That's a lot of concussions over the years, And so,
yeah.
So it's like, so then I really loved the way it made me feel, really started loving what I was learning about it and the history. And I was like, oh, interesting, And then I had always wanted to live in California. And so I moved to Newport Beach in like 9 years ago. And so I started a business with my friend from college back then in the cannabis industry. And what we did was a edibles subscription box that had 4 or 5 of our favorite edibles in the state of California that we would, send to your door every month. And it'd be like a surprise. So it'd be like a curated box of the best edibles in the state, every month. And it was called Shades of Green. And, that was a lot of learning lessons for me. And, my first business venture. And it was a great idea. We had a lot of the edibles companies just handing us boxes of edibles, like, you guys are going to kill it. This is amazing, and learned a lot of lessons about business partnership. And you could have the best idea in the world, but if you don't work out as partners, it's like a marriage. Like, you really have nothing in your business. So that didn't end up working out. But while I was in the industry, I went to a cannabis conference in Las Vegas, and I saw Dr. Michelle Sexton speak, who's a naturopathic doctor, and she blew me away. I was like, whoa, I never knew that naturopathic medicine existed. Like, this is amazing, and I'd always wanted to be a doctor when I was younger, my whole life. And then I switched to finance because I was at, in freshman year of college. Because, like, I don't want to be old and be a doctor. I want to make money, like my cousin making money in finance. So I switched it. And I was never very passionate about that. I was just kind of going through the motions. I was in it for the money, and it's, not the answer. It wasn't for me, at least. And so I needed to find my passion, and that passion ended up being cannabis, and I became like an activist for the plant. Honestly, I would talk to anybody I could talk to that would listen to me about, hey, about cannabis and how good it can be, especially CBD for your body, and And when I started learning about the endocannabinoid system, really in depth, in school, it was just mind blowing, the implications of it all. And then cannabis is what led me to naturopathic medicine. I realized that was a thing, decided to go back to school. And that's what I did. And my whole intention going back to school was never to see patients. Like I said, is more of like doing some kind of unique hybrid of my background and kind of combining it all together. So that's what I've been working on.
Very cool.
With vitamin R being kind of like the first venture into that. My podcast, which I also have as well, called Healing Intentions, which I've been doing the last 4 years. And then, so.
Very cool. With I had so many different questions in my head with the cannabis stuff in particular. And I'm curious, like, you talked about hemp, and I am somebody it's never really just been my plant, I guess, for lack of a better word. I have an off and on relationship with it, and I've never bought cannabis ever personally. Just have used it, recreationally, occasionally with friends or that kind of thing.
Sure.
Is hemp and cannabis, are they just two words for the same thing, or is like one of them slightly different, or is there some level of difference in the relationship between those two things?
It's a really good question. It's really common, misconception out there. Cannabis sativa or cannabis indica is the name of the plant botanically. And then what makes it cannabis or hemp is the amount of THC in the plant. That's what the legal distinction is. And so if it's cannabis, it's above 0.3% THC, and that makes it a cannabis plant. And then also just like, the female plant that has the flowers and the buds, that's like what we smoke. That's what that is. But then the hemp plant can be used for the CBD, that we consume and put in products or whatever, or smoke even the flower. Or it can be used for fiber and for all the other stuff that can be made out of hemp. Those are like the hemp stalks that grow like real tall, and it almost doesn't look like a cannabis plant, but they are the same. It's just about like how much THC is in it, how much CBD. And those are the two main compounds. They're kind of like the yin yang of the plant, CBD, THC. THC is what gets you high, but there is some medical benefit to it, for sure. With cancer, quite a bit, directly killing cancer cells. And then, with just the cancer treatment symptoms, that side effects, chemotherapy or radiation, like what are all the side effects? Nausea, pain, not feeling so great, not being hungry, not being able to sleep. Cannabis literally helps with all of those, so it's amazing. And then the CBD side of it is really where a lot of the medical benefit comes. I think CBD oil is something that pretty much everybody could benefit from taking like every day. I take it morning and night every day. It's so beneficial. I mean, your endocannabinoid system is literally touching every physiological system in your body, your nervous system, your gut, your immune system, everything, all of it. So when you realize that, it's like, who couldn't use some kind of balancing in any one of those symptoms
Mm-hmm.
at any systems at any one time,
Yeah.
So it's just absolutely incredible. Anti-inflammatory. I mean, our own government has a patent on CBD as a neuroprotectant
Hmm.
and an anti-inflammatory. So it's like,
Wow.
oh, well, that's a fun fact a lot of people don't know about. So then how can our government say that it's a Schedule 1 drug still? It's
Mm-hmm.
so crazy. I mean, you could talk to 10 different attorneys about the legality of cannabis and hemp, and you're going to get 10
Wow.
different answers and 10
Hmm.
different interpretations of, like, well, this is what's going on, and THC is legal here in this state but not legal federally anywhere because it's Schedule 1 drug. But then CBD is legal in certain states but not in other states, but it is legal because federal hemp bill of 2018 said that anything below 0.3% of THC is hemp, so it's legal. So it's just this, like, the most convoluted, weird mess of a thing. And my whole thing is, like, how can the government come out and say, hey guys, we've been lying to you all this time? It's like, how do they
Yeah.
admit that? And it's hard for them to do. And it's like, oh, there's no research that shows that cannabis is beneficial. Well, that's not true. There's plenty of research all around the world. And how are you going to research something when it's a Schedule 1 drug? It's really hard to
Right.
research it. So it's this catch-22 that is really unfortunate because it's helped a lot of people. I've seen it help so many people. I mean, so with so many things, anxiety, and I mean, my own, mother takes CBD every night. It helps her so much with her sleep, with her inflammation from arthritis, with anxiety, with your body's HPA axis stress response. Your HPA axis is your hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenal glands, and it's this axis in your body, and it's like how your body's responding to stress. And CBD oil helps your body respond to the stress better. It's like, who couldn't use that
Hmm.
these days?
Yeah.
That's my
Yeah.
argument for it. So yeah, it's
Hmm.
it's it's really amazing. And the deeper you go into it, the more you're just like, wow, how is this not taught at every medical school? How is this not being shouted from the mountaintops because of how beneficial it is?
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah. With CBD, that's legal pretty much anywhere, right? Because there doesn't
yeah,
have to be THC in that, so that's like
yeah,
a totally fine legal substance pretty much anywhere. I think most of the places I've lived in, I think
yeah,
THC is legal now.
yep.
But with CBD, is there something that you're finding from the quality of the oil, or is there a brand or anything like that that you particularly recommend? Because for
Yeah.
me personally, I've tried CBD, I don't know how many different times, 4 or 5 different times, and I've personally just never felt anything from it, except for from one brand, I think, and I don't remember the name of them anymore,
Yeah.
where I had like a slight effect from it, but for the most part, it's been pretty innocuous for me. So like, when somebody's like looking for a good CBD product or a good CBD brand, like what should they be looking for?
Yeah, great question. I would say it matters a lot on the quality, because it is widely available. And for a while there, it became really hyped up and you'd see it kind of everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And especially in the states where THC isn't legal, like you see it in smoke shops and gas stations and just all over the place, natural health food stores and many places. Um, it's like the places where there was THC, people are like, well, what do I need that for? Or I could just buy it at the dispensary. But it's I don't know. It's interesting. It's very different. Like my favorite quality of I've found is a company called New Leaf Naturals, NULEAF, New Leaf Naturals, and they sell online. They sell in some stores too, but online it's easy to get, and they're out of Colorado. They're organic and amazing, super high quality, the best I found. And it does make a difference because I've tried CBD that's just whatever from whatever brands. You don't know what you're getting. Like it
Mm-hmm.
could say there's 1,000 milligrams of CBD in the bottle, and they've done some testing, just random, whatever, samples of what's on the market, and there's like maybe 20 milligrams of CBD in the whole bottle.
Wow.
So it's like, yeah, you could be taking the dose that it says, but what's actually in the bottle? What are you actually taking? So the quality matters a lot. The dosing matters a lot. And so taking enough and then taking it for long enough, like consistently for like a few days, a week, even up to 2 weeks,
Mm-hmm.
for your body to kind of, get used to it and work with it and everything.
Just
So yeah, so the main thing is the quantity, the dosage is huge. Like if you don't feel anything, you just need to take a little bit more, or just the quality wasn't there, But for me, I take like 15 milligrams or so in the morning and then 30 milligrams at night. And that's great for like, if you take too much, the worst that's going to happen is that you get too calm and too chill, and you just don't feel like really doing much, and you're just going to like kind of chill out. Not, God forbid, you chill out and take a breath and breathe a little bit in this world, right? Like most people definitely need that. And so that's all. That's why it's like at night your best bet is to test out your dosing at night, because then it's like worst thing that happens is you just get a great night's rest.
Right.
So you just got to do that, and if it's not enough, then you just up it a little bit more. Everybody, the thing is with natural medicine, holistic medicine, is it's very individualized. What might work for you might work differently for someone else, might work differently. So it's all about getting to know yourself, like I said again about the festivals, and what works for you, what works for your body, and working with that, and just testing it. That's the great thing about natural medicine, is that it's all safe things. For the most part, you got to be careful of some things, but very safe, non-toxic things that you can kind of like play around with, versus, with pharmaceuticals. Like you got to really be careful with that stuff. I mean, fun fact, one bottle of Tylenol has enough in there to kill 10 children from Tylenol toxicity. Jeez. Yeah. And it's just sold over the counter. No big deal, but like to buy cannabis, you got to go through this screening and check your ID and security. And it's like, oh no, watch out, and all this child lock stuff. And I mean, it's just, it's really interesting. But yet there's a liquor store on in like every corner. And it's like, how many people is alcohol killing every year? And it's super toxic to the body. And it's, it's celebrated socially. And then here we are, like you pull out a joint and you're like this, hippie stoner, like, whoa, So I'm really about stigma, like I thought about a lot about like, do I want to smoke a joint on this podcast? Because I normally would on a lot of my podcasts I have, and I do that kind of on purpose to be like, hey, I can have this smart, responsible, conversation and not be like out of my mind, stoned, and like, you think I'm this crazy person. It's like I'm still functional and I'm okay, So I'm trying to like kind of break that stigma a little bit of like who does smoke and how do they use it, all of that. So
I've seen it. I think that's really important, because I think I have seen it personally help a lot of different people. At the same time, I have seen it also, I don't want to say like it harm them, but people use it in a way that's not useful for themselves, or they're using it to numb things out. Or so can you talk a little bit about like what are some like the dark sides of this substance as well?
Yeah, no, it's an excellent point. And you got to be balanced on it. I don't ever want to say that like this is the greatest thing ever and everybody needs to smoke cannabis. Like, no, definitely not. And anything good, like water even, can be used as a medicine or a poison depending on the dose and how it's used. It's really about the intention behind it and then your relationship to it. But like, it can definitely be abused for sure. It's a great, very beneficial healing plant. But if it's being used to suppress and numb emotions, that's not the most ideal use of it, for sure. And that can be problematic. And then, the one negative for me is that when I smoke, that's the only time that I eat things that I know are not great for me. The munchies can get out of control, but it's not even, you can't even fully blame it on the cannabis, because I know plenty of people that smoke, weed every day and they're in perfect shape. So it's not about the cannabis. It's like your own control and like, okay, if I get really hungry from smoking, maybe I should eat some carrots instead of some,
Mm-hmm.
Sour Patch Kids. Like, it's about making choices, healthy choices. But
Yeah.
yeah, it can be overused and abused, no doubt. And
Mm-hmm.
I've even been guilty of that sometimes, and justifying it as like, oh, it's this healing plant and all is good, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, there's one thing smoking at a concert or whatever with friends somewhere, and it's another thing just smoking just by yourself on a Tuesday at 2 p.m. It's like, is that
Mm-hmm.
overboard? Is that necessary? Nobody knows that besides yourself. That's the interesting thing about addiction, is that like you can be very functional and doing great, or it can be a problem and go into
Mm-hmm.
it's controlling your life and you're not in control anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that can be with
Yeah,
any substance too. That's the
totally.
addiction world is really interesting, because you can be addicted to cannabis, you can be addicted to coffee, you can be addicted to work, sex,
Mm-hmm.
power, whatever, making money, many things. So
Mm-hmm.
yep.
Yeah, it's so fascinating to me because I'm someone who was in the biohacking world for a long time, and I've seen really, really awesome things. I've seen really bad things and BS things in that space.
Yep.
But I've also really, really grown to appreciate how individual each of us are. Like, I know people, like I look at Seth Rogen, for example. He was on the Diary of a CEO podcast. And he talks about the fact that, like, marijuana has greatly affected positively every aspect of his life.
Yep.
And he does it every day, and he's a big proponent of it, and all these kinds of things. And it's like, yeah, that has helped him.
Right.
And yet, to somebody else, they can smoke a joint and they can be paranoid for a significant amount of time, or they can just have these
Yep.
other problems. And
Yep.
I know there's a lot of data with especially for, I think it's young men, if they're doing it consistently at a young age, they're much more prone to psychosis later on in their life. So there's all of these different, dynamics that go on with it. And it's incredible to me just how individual each of our bodies are, which is why I think, to your, going into naturopathic medicine, why that kind of path is so important. Because then you're looking at biomarkers, you're looking at lifestyle, you're looking at all of these different things and really working out like what works for me as an individual
Yep.
versus just what does the population work and trying to fit myself into the population.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah. It's N of one medicine is what I heard Dr. Kelly
Mm-hmm.
Brogan, who's an amazing holistic psychiatrist, talk about it like that. And exactly, it's really about what works best for you. And same thing with diets. It's the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, vegan for everybody. Oh, carnivore for everybody. It's like, no.
Mm-hmm.
What works for your individual? And there's many ways to go about that. Different tests and food intolerance tests and allergies and sensitivities and all that. That's a whole different topic of the world. Honestly, I don't even get too into that. My philosophy with food is pretty simple. Of like, eat real food, and if it didn't exist like 100 years ago, you probably shouldn't eat it. Simple. Like, eat real whole
Mm-hmm.
foods, and then you got to discover what your body individually doesn't like and can tolerate. Because some people thrive on dairy-free, gluten-free, and that's what their body needs in the moment. Do I believe that's what everybody needs to do forever? Definitely not. I love
Mm-hmm.
my gluten and my dairy sometimes, and I really believe in, like, if I'm enjoying it and I don't beat myself up over it and I just really love it in that moment, I don't have the guilt and the shame after, that's doing a lot less damage to my body than like, oh, I shouldn't have eaten that. Oh, this is so bad for me.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this pizza is going to give me acne tomorrow. Oh shit, I shouldn't do this, versus like, yeah, I'm not a robot. I'm here to enjoy life as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to enjoy that right
Yeah.
now. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
my philosophy. Yep.
Yeah. No, I think it's amazing because it's like I see people like I think it's Jordan Peterson's daughter and
Yep.
other people who are, it's like they eat anything, any sort of vegetable, anything like that, any of these things that we normally say are good for them. And it's like their body has this autoimmune response that
Yep.
makes them start to attack themselves. And so it's like all they can basically eat is a very clean carnivore, very simple diet in that regard. But then you have, like you said, you have vegans who are thriving off of all of the same stuff that's harming somebody else. And
Right.
I know people who are, like want to be vegan or close to vegan, but like can't have soy. And like soy just destroys their entire body because they have an autoimmune response to that.
Yep.
It's utterly fascinating how each of us work. And I think we're moving out of the diet wars, although there's still some of that going on, but I
Yeah.
think we're at a much better place for that.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think it's going to always, be some division going on in these things. And, there's, like you said, in the biohacking world, there's a lot of money being made on some of this stuff, and big
Mm-hmm.
businesses and enterprise, coming out of like all of this. But, it's like, you just got to use discernment and critical thinking for yourself. And that's where, a good doctor teaches their patient how to be like their own doctor, to where you don't need the doctor anymore, and like every so often you
Mm-hmm.
check in, whatever, kind of things. But that's why my whole like overall vision is to educate and empower people to realize they're their own self healers, and at the same time kind of raising the level of consciousness, through all of these practices, and basically taking the power back, being responsible for your own health instead of a victim of like, oh, well, my
Mm-hmm.
genes, my genetics, like, oh, poor me. It's like one of my favorite quotes is, genetics loads the gun, but your lifestyle
Mm-hmm.
pulls the trigger,
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like,
Yep.
yeah, maybe type 2 diabetes runs in your family, but it's not because of the genes. It's because everybody in the family is eating horribly and not moving their bodies. And like,
Right.
it's simple. It's not easy
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, but it's really simple. Type 2 diabetes is super reversible with diet and exercise, but it's like, do you want to put in the effort? And,
Mm-hmm.
that's why it's all about meeting people where they're at. Like, a lot of people are not
Yeah.
ready for this kind of medicine. They're like, I don't want to do any work. Give me the pill, and that's it, and that's
Yeah.
fine. And there's, plenty of practitioners out there for that. But there's a lot of people that are like, they tried the conventional route, everything that doctors have to offer in Mayo Clinic and Cleveland Clinic and all these places, and they're still sick. And they're like, okay, their last resort is, let me go see this natural hippie, weirdo doctor and see what he has to
Mm-hmm.
tell me. And like, oh wow, miracle cases I've
Yeah.
heard over and over and over and over again through my life, like stuff that conventional medicine says is not curable, that I've seen with my own
Mm-hmm.
eyes, people being cured. So like, there's one of my favorite quotes: there are no incurable diseases, there are only incurable patients.
Fair enough. Yeah. I'm curious with your own journey. I kind of want to go back to that. You talked about like your first MDMA experience at EDC in Chicago, and you
Mm-hmm.
talked about kind of being blown open.
Yeah.
Like what were you experiencing, and maybe even take a step back further with that. Like, who were you before that experience, and who were you after?
Mm, yeah, great question. I feel like I was, it's like it allows you to experience what that level of love and self-love, self-acceptance, and then love towards others and acceptance of others that I've never felt to that level anywhere close to in my life. It was my first psychedelic experience, mind altering. Like, I'd smoked cannabis before that, and that's it. And I did MDMA. So I was like, whoa, you know, I can't believe how much love I'm feeling right now for not only my friends that I'm with, but like the random dude over there, like, whoa,
Mm-hmm.
how is this possible? You know, and then just the bonding that happens, like it releases, MDMA releases, oxytocin in your brain, which is the bonding hormone. And that's what gets released when a woman has, birth, or when they're breastfeeding, or when you give a hug to somebody, or when you look in your pet's eyes. Even oxytocin is released in your eyes and the pet's eyes, which is just so beautiful, and so
Mm-hmm.
you feel that level of like bonding that, I don't know, it's just beautiful. And that's why it's been so, one of the theories of why it's so effective in the PTSD trials that they've done with MAPS, and helping people go through these traumas and talk about them. Because what it does to your brain, it's lowering the blood flow to the amygdala, which is like the fear center of the brain. And so you can talk about these traumas without being so overwhelmed by the emotions. And that's why people are able to, go through all this horrible trauma they went through with the therapist. And then the MDMA allows for this like bonding to happen between the, patients, the therapists, so they can really open up more, talk about this difficult stuff more, and go through it and release it, heal it. And that's why these numbers that have come out of these trials is just amazing. 65% of people no longer having, PTSD after three sessions with MDMA. I mean, that's incredible. Treatment resistant PTSD. These are people that tried everything else that conventional medicine had to offer, all the, SSRIs and the therapy and all the stuff, nothing. And then they do 3 sessions with MDMA and 2 therapists there, and then they're cured. It's like, oh, okay. So I really believe that psychedelics are the catalyst to switching this whole healthcare paradigm back to natural health, the way that it's always been. Because this pharmaceutical, whole thing has come in only in these last 100 years. And again, I don't want to talk like I'm talking, sound like I'm talking shit about pharmaceuticals. We need them. We love insulin. We love anesthesia. Very grateful for it, right? Amazing. Saved a lot of lives, but putting someone on, 3 different psychotic medications, antipsychotic medications, with all these list of side effects, I for the rest of their lives, I don't think that's the solution, so there's a lot out there that's happening right now, especially in the psychedelic world. And that's what was fascinating to me during school, kind of watching all this. All the cannabis stuff was moving and exciting, more states legalizing, more happening. But then this psychedelic movement has kind of leapfrogged cannabis and has kind of become the spotlight, and really hot and heavy everywhere. I mean, it's being talked about so much, all this research, all this money investment into it, because it's so needed. It just shows like how big of a problem we have in the mental health space and how the current solutions are just not cutting it. So that's why this is happening. Yeah.
And what about for you, like personally, I guess, what like, I kind of asked you before, but how did that experience actually like change you? Like, were you kind of, I would say, keeping people at like an arm's distance beforehand, or like what was your life like before you had that experience?
It's a good question. I've never really thought about it like that. I would say I just became more like accepting of myself, and then that allowed the other to accept others as they are, and like the whole festival, it's like the combination of the MDMA combined with the festival scene and kind of the way they work with each other, but like being at a festival, one of the big things about it, I think, is it's just full creative expression for people. There's no fear, there's no filters, and they're just being themselves fully, authentically. And you don't see that in normal society. It's like everyone's kind of these masks and these shells of themselves, and I gotta act this way around this person, and like I can just be myself fully at a festival, and I never experienced that anywhere else. And I just felt like that was so beautiful. And just seeing people, I felt like before MDMA, before festivals, I would judge people. I would somebody that was a little different than me, or be like, oh, what are they wearing? What the heck is that about? And then after a festival in MDMA, I'm like, wow, like that's what makes them happy. And I love it, and cool and amazing. Let me go talk to that person. I'm sure they have something interesting to share, and different than what I would normally do. And so that's another thing that's interesting about MDMA, is the whole like social aspect of it. It just opens you up more, and interesting study they've done with people with autism and social anxiety, and they gave MDMA to them, and because of how much they theorized it would help them, and of course it did, so you feel that for sure on MDMA, about how you're just more open and more, less afraid to just talk to whoever about whatever topic, share more of yourself, and ask about other people, having a genuine interest in other people's lives. And yeah, I'd say that's what I can think of off the top of my head right now.
Yeah. So what I heard a lot was like for you, it was a lot of like letting go of judgment. So there was like a higher amount of like, oh, this person's this way. I don't want to be around that person, or what's up with this guy, that kind of thing. And
Yep.
then afterwards, for you, it was a lot of being able to really let that go. And a lot of times I know it's a kind of a cliche, but I find it to be very true. It's like what we judge in others is often what we judge about ourselves, right? And so
Exactly.
it's like once we start to learn to accept ourselves, we're better at accepting others, and that's where I think people can be a mirror for how we feel or think about ourselves, right? It's like we're seeing this person that we're jealous of or angry about or
Yep.
judgmental towards, and it's like that's for me. I take it often as, oh, that's something that I ought to like pay attention to. Like, what is it about them, even if it's not the behavior itself, but some part of it's like, oh, it's because I feel like I can't act that way. I feel like I
Right.
can't express that way myself because that's bad or judgmental or whatever it would be.
Yep.
And that I'm not allowed to be my authentic self, and so I'm judging somebody else who is able to access that part of them.
Yep. Yeah. That's spot on. I agree. And it's like you're tapping into that, and then it's like, what do you do with it then? Yeah, it's like you're afterwards,
Mm-hmm.
like you're kind of your integration of that experience. Like, are you going to continue being that way? Just because you have a psychedelic experience and insights and realize things, that's why the integration is like the key of it all, because you can have these awesome insights and realizations, but if you don't change anything about the way you are, the way you do things, or your daily habits, then it's just another memory. It's just this cool thing in the past that,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I really connected with myself and others, and then just continue being the same judgmental asshole afterwards. It's like, cool, that's
Yeah.
fine, but you had an opportunity there to learn from that and apply it, and possibly change yourself a little bit. But you know not always, it's
Yeah.
up to you whether you take that or not. So yeah.
Yeah, and I find that's true with festivals, whether that somebody's doing a substance or not, just because the
Right.
experience is so radically different
Yep.
and transformative. I'm curious, like, what's helped you personally better integrate those experiences afterwards?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's something I'm still kind of figuring out, honestly. The integration piece, I know the importance of it, so much so that's why I'm like constantly trying to dig deeper into it. What does that look like? One of my friends that does psychedelic work, he talks about how, like, it's the intention going into it, plus the experience, and then that's the integration after, and then all of that together will equal your transformation. So
Mm-hmm.
the integration looks different for everybody. Again, individualized. I can't say everybody needs to journal and meditate and do yoga after their
Mm-hmm.
experience, because that's not true for everybody. So
Mm-hmm.
for me, I really have gotten deep into meditation. That's another topic we could talk deeply about. I've done a 10-day silent Vipassana meditation retreat. I've done a 7-day Dr. Joe Dispenza meditation retreat, which was amazing.
Yeah, I've done one too.
Oh, awesome. Nice. So we got lots to talk
Yeah.
about there. And, and yeah, it's been just amazing. Another one of those things, like, how simple can it be to just sit and not talk for
Mm-hmm.
a moment of time,
Yeah.
right? And just profound. So
Is there
meditation,
a kind of meditation that you do?
it's a good question. I kind of change it up. I've done so many different kinds now. I change it up between either just silent and just kind of like in the Vipassana, kind of focusing on your breath, over and over and
Mm-hmm.
over again. Or I do guided Joe Dispenza meditations sometimes. I
Mm-hmm.
just did that this morning, the morning meditation.
Nice.
Sometimes I do just like meditation music, and just that kind of on the background, and then just that. Sometimes it's not just like a sitting and meditating thing. It's more of a moving meditation, like a walking type meditation, like a very mindfully doing something, like, a lot of meditation teachers talk about, like, it's easy to be chill and calm when you're on the cushion sitting down cross-legged. But what do you do when you're, hit the traffic jam and you're like ready to freak out? That's like a meditation opportunity right there, to be like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
I can just focus on my music and this podcast I'm listening to and, call a friend, whatever, instead of choosing to freak out right now. It's that choosing to respond instead of reacting, just that little bit of space
Right.
that it can buy you, just a few seconds, even a second, to be like, let me take a breath and like, how do I want to choose to respond to this moment versus just like
Right.
automatic reaction. So yeah, I change it up a lot with the meditation. I'd say a key thing, practical tip for people is it's better to be consistent with it every day, every morning. Even 5 minutes, is better than every once in a while, once a week, once every month, whatever, to do it for an hour or whatever.
Right.
So the
Mm-hmm.
consistency is key. And then one of my favorite Zen proverbs that I always love to share with people is everybody needs to meditate 20 minutes a day. But if you're too busy, you should meditate an hour a day.
Right. Yeah. My first therapist, said the same thing to me, and she took me about a year before I started meditation, and then finally I did. And I always say that was the best thing I got out of 2 years of therapy, and I don't mean that in a negative sense towards her. It was just it started a life-changing cycle for me where I remember my first meditation distinctly because I remember how relaxed I felt afterwards, being like, wow, that was really interesting. I remember one probably a week or two in where I realized how much was going in my mind, and it felt like I was going places, and realizing that I was just sitting there, but there was so much going on in my mind separately, right?
Yep.
And then the third big piece that was probably like a month or two in, was me driving to my therapist's office and seeing my thoughts for the first time. And anybody who's meditated or maybe done psychedelics probably knows what I'm talking about. But like, where I was seeing myself have an argument and this reason why I needed to be so angry at this thing, but I was watching myself have that experience and being like,
Right.
oh, and I was seeing myself choose that over and over again, right? And it was
Yeah.
like, oh, and that was a huge awakening for me, because I was like, oh, there's something else happening here, and I can step out of it, right? I was
Right.
able to start being like, there is the habit that is me, and then there's also this other part of me that can actually control or choose, like you said, choose that response that I actually want, and I can
Yep.
become who I want to be from that moment on. And like,
Yep.
there's definitely for me a big distinction in my life from the moment I started meditating to that time before that.
Yep. Absolutely. No, spot on. And that's kind of what I realized at the Joe Dispenza retreat too, is that, I kept meeting all these people that were super into psychedelics, and they're like, oh yeah, ayahuasca, I've done that. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
But they're like, but this is where the real magic is at, And I was like, whoa,
Mm-hmm.
and even Joe Dispenza talking about, I was like, yeah, plant medicine, DMT, all that. That's cool. He's like, but we have way more going on in here,
Yeah.
and he's
Yeah.
spot on. He's right. And what I realize is that one of my favorite kind of analogies is like meditation, yoga, breath work. These are all, climbing up the mountain slowly, walking up the mountain. And psychedelics are like a helicopter ride to the top. They let you see what's possible, but then you always come back down. So it's
Right.
all about the integration after. And that's what I realized at Joe Dispenza, is that like meditation is the integration. So just do that every day. And how do you think your life is going to go if you start your day off
Yeah.
every day like that?
Yeah, one of my favorite follows on YouTube and social media right now is this guy. His name's The Healthy Gamer. I don't know if you've ever seen him
No.
on YouTube. His name's Dr. K. So he has a fascinating story. So he spent 7 years as a monk after dropping out of college.
Wow.
And then came back and graduated with a 2.5 GPA. Ended up getting into Harvard eventually for med school.
Whoa.
And is a Harvard trained psychiatrist. So he has this like really beautiful balance of being in India and Japan and all of these different monasteries, training as a monk, has all this Eastern wisdom and training,
Yeah.
mixed with the, the Western medical model, and really does a beautiful job. I mean, basically what he does now, he still, I believe, sees patients, but a lot of what he does is he just goes on YouTube and he will give small lectures and talks, but he'll stream live for 2 to 3 hours, interviewing someone. Basically, it's technically not live therapy. It's just a conversation, but it's basically like live therapy that you're watching him guide a very like famous internet streamer through, or a
Wow.
social media person of various kinds. And it's amazing. I mean, if you want a master class in communication, can't recommend his stuff more than anybody else. But one of the things he talks about, he was on a podcast with this guy named Dr. Mike, who I really appreciate because he's very medical, and he's very good at knowledgeably pushing back against a lot of, I would say, the naturopathic stuff for the
Hmm.
biohacking stuff, right? Where
Yeah.
you can see, and I've seen it in a lot of, more so in the biohacking space specifically, where
Yeah.
there can be a lot of doctors or people who aren't even doctors just talking a lot about stuff that's not necessarily scientifically
Oh yeah.
validated. And that's not to say that it maybe doesn't work in some cases or whatever, but they
Right.
can use very hyperbolic statements. And Mike
Right.
does a great job of like pushing back, and having really thoughtful discussions because he understands the medical field so well. And they
Hmm.
had a conversation about Ayurveda and that perspective. And Dr. K really showed just how much has come from these Eastern traditions because they have a completely different model than how we approach things from the West, right? Like one of the examples he gives is that in the West, meditation is now considered a form of treatment, right? But before that, it like doesn't work. And so it, until there's a bunch of testing, right? Then we're like, oh, now it works. And now it's a form of like, okay,
Right.
treatment. And part of the way that our model works is it either doesn't work or it's part of the model,
Yeah.
but there's not like any sort of in between, right? There's no like, oh, well, there's these things that like maybe kind of work or work for an individual or have an individualized perspective on it.
Yeah.
And so things are sort of getting cut off at the neck, and then until they're accepted, but then they're kind of cut off from the rest of it, right? And so he talks
Hmm.
a lot about the systems that meditation and all of these things come from, and really things that people have discovered for thousands and thousands of years that we haven't really been in touch with because we're in the West and we haven't spent, uh, several millennia of our own generations meditating,
Right.
and having written that down and passing it through lineage after lineage.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, that's interesting. I can't wait to check that guy out. I've never heard of Dr. K, so that's a cool background. Kind of reminds me of Jay Shetty with his whole like monk background, and then doing his
Mm-hmm.
whole thing now. But this guy's even on another level, so I love that.
Yeah, yeah. He's incredible. He's one of the voices that's definitely influenced me the most over the last like year. And part of what I love about him too, to some of your point about like, you still gotta enjoy those Sour Patch Kids every now and then, that kind of thing, is he had a video game addiction,
Mm,
went through all this process, and now comes back and still loves video games, but he teaches people a lot of like how to have a healthy relationship with technology and with social media and with video
mm,
games, and not to be in a place where it's like, oh, we're just going to cut this out because that's not realistic
yeah,
and not fun, right? But like
yeah,
understanding how are these things affecting our brains, how are they affecting our psychology, and how do we have a healthy relationship, how do parents help their kids have a healthy relationship with these things so that we can live the life that we want to live.
yeah. I
um,
love that. I love that.
yeah. um, so I'm curious, I kind of want to turn over to the vitamin R stuff a bit.
Hmm.
How did you come up with that formula? How did you discover that? Like, what was the process for actually developing this thing? Because there are a ton of different, I would say, supplements or supplement type things that are out there
Right,
that people are like, oh, take this after you party.
right.
And I've seen those and I've been like, just from what I know about enough things, from supplements and my experience in the biohacking space. And then I've seen yours and I'm like, wow, this is like really, really well thought out. It has a lot of different like herbs and botanicals mixed in. It's not just like, here's some 5-HTP and like a low grade magnesium. It's like
Right.
some really high quality stuff. So how did you develop what you put into vitamin R, and how did you decide on those things?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I mean, it's been a, labor of love, a long process. It was, like I said, over 2 years. I've been tweaking it, thinking about it, talking about it with friends, researching the ingredients, thinking about what would make sense. Like the whole formulation of ingredients it's a whole art and a science. We took 4 different classes in botanical medicine, and the last 2
Wow.
were all on formulation, and it was just like, it's amazing because it's like you have these different ingredients and what they each individually do, but then when you put them
Mm-hmm.
together, the way they kind of work together and create this entourage effect, synergistic kind of effect, they make each other stronger and kind of work better. I mean, it's just amazing, so yeah, I started with kind of like what's out there already. I did a bunch of research, looked into the other ingredients, options out there, and I just made a better version of it. I included my CBD in there as well, of course, because of the
Mm-hmm.
benefits for the brain, and neuroprotection and just overall anti-inflammatory. Excuse me. And so that's a big one. And then CBG is another cannabinoid that is not as well known, but it's really great for cognitive benefits, great for the brain as well. So have those 2 in there. And then those kind of working together is a powerful kind of 1-2 punch. You'll see that in some products out there in the cannabis space that combine CBD, CBG. So did that. And then I started, my whole idea behind this, supplement is how do I protect the brain's neuron cells, and how do I, help replenish the serotonin that gets depleted from MDMA. I mean, we know that MDMA is, boosting serotonin like crazy, and like a couple of different ways that it does it. It's not fresh off the top of my head, but it's like a serotonin reuptake inhibitor, like an
Mm-hmm.
SSRI, and it helps actually release more serotonin. So it's like coming at it from multiple angles. So that's why you feel so good, the serotonin, and then it also releases some dopamine, not as much, but some. So I said, okay, what helps build serotonin and dopamine in your body? And so I started just, putting together different, extracts, different combinations of products. And honestly, when I first made my initial formula, uh, what I ideally, theoretically would have liked, it was going to be 9 capsules worth of worth of ingredients at one
Wow.
time, one serving, which is just
Mm-hmm.
too much. I got some advice from people that like people have pill fatigue, and
Yeah.
it's not, me personally, I'm a little crazy, and I'll take like 20 capsules at once in my hand and just swallow them all in one gulp. Most people don't do that, I realized. So a lot of people have trouble swallowing one at a time, so
Yeah.
for now, the capsule is like my delivery form. It's just easier. I just wanted to get going. I have some other ideas for other easier delivery forms, but I just, one step at a time. But and so yeah, things to support the brain, acetyl carnitine, alpha lipoic acid. Another thing is like with the mitochondria, it's helping to support the mitochondrial health. And because there's 5,000 mitochondrial cells per neuron cell or heart cell in our body. So in each heart cell and neuron, you have 5,000 mitochondria in each of those cells. So that's way more than the
Wow.
average cells in your body, So it's all about
Yeah.
supporting those mitochondria in your heart, in your brain. So that's why a lot of these ingredients are in here, like the carnitine, alpha lipoic acid, the magnesium, obviously, many, many reasons for that. One of the most important, minerals in our body. It's used in like over 700 reactions in our body or something crazy like that. So,
Yeah.
and the whole like jaw clenching and like grinding that people get,
Mm-hmm.
that I found is a magnesium deficiency. I mean, you fix your
Yep.
magnesium deficiency, and this, if you have a clean quality, source, doesn't happen anymore. So,
Yeah. I have a great magnesium supplement that I love from Bioptimizers called Magnesium Breakthrough, and I saw somebody who was having crazy jaw clenching and gave it to them, and like the rest of the festival, they didn't have it again. They're like, "Dude, I just had that one supplement." It's like, "Yeah, dude, you're just low. Like, you just
yeah,
gotta. This is an important thing to have in your
yeah,
body."
like super
Yeah.
important. Yeah. So I've heard many things about that product. I haven't tried it yet. I'm gonna order that one next. I always kind of rotate through.
I Yeah, I highly recommend checking it out. It's what I love about it is it's the most complete magnesium that I've seen. Like it has almost all of the types that we need, and it's in a very, you know, significant dosage. Right? It's not just
Yeah.
like one type or a very low dose or whatever. It's a great product. I can't
Mhm.
recommend it
Mhm.
enough.
Yeah, and then that's another thing you said about the dose. That's one thing I really wanted to make sure was good in this product is enough dosing of stuff and not keep it proprietary. I know a lot of companies out there. I don't like when they do that whole like proprietary blend and you have no idea how much is in
Mm-hmm.
there. It could be just 5 milligrams of this one at the bottom just so it says that it's in there, and then a bunch of
Mm-hmm.
milligrams of the one at the top, and you have no idea. I just don't like that uncertainty
Yeah.
about products. I like full transparency. So I put high enough
So
doses in there. I put all the ingredients on there. Um, and the best forms of each of the ingredients in there, like B6, pyridoxal 5-phosphate. And I learned from Andrew Huberman's podcast that, his one on MDMA, that it helps to lower your prolactin, which gets increased because of MDMA. So that's, interesting. That specific B vitamin.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah,
And
I
when
mean,
do you
vitamin
recommend?
R. That's how I came up with it. I'm just in the initial phases of it all right now, just starting to get it out there. So far, the feedback from everybody that has tried it has been amazing. Really feeling
Great,
the effects and like feeling like they feel a lot better after like almost like they didn't take
beautiful,
anything. So that's the idea, and
great.
I'm excited about it because it's actually a great product, and it's needed out there. So
Yeah, no, definitely. And if somebody's taking vitamin R, like when do they take that? Do they take it before, like during, after?
yeah, good question. It's only meant for after because it has 5-HTP in there, so you don't want to take that before or during, because then the 5-HTP is kind of competing for the same serotonin receptors, and then you're
Mm.
not going to feel whatever substances you're taking as much, and then it can become the whole serotonin toxicity thing is really more of like a theoretical like issue. Like it is
Mm.
possible, it has happened to people with taking huge amounts of MDMA and then taking their SSRI still or whatever antidepressants that they're on, and just the whole mix of a bunch of things, like multiple days of high doses of MDMA. Yeah, you could have serotonin toxicity, which is a problem you can actually die from. It can be dangerous for
Right.
sure. But taking 100 milligrams of 5-HTP, which is what I have in my 5 vitamin R, the day after you're taking any substances, it's totally fine. So yeah, the meant for the day after, the morning after. Some people have asked, can you take it at night before you go to sleep? I've tried that. I've had people do that. I wouldn't recommend it because it does have B vitamins, taurine, things that couldn't give you energy. So I've had people say they couldn't sleep if they took it at night. So I would say the morning after
Yeah, yeah.
with
Okay,
food,
cool. So morning
ideally.
after.
But you don't need to take it with
Cool.
food. I tested it, and you don't get an upset stomach. But I wouldn't push that. I would recommend with food.
All right, perfect. So with food, the morning after.
Yeah,
Great.
yeah.
Um, what are some of your favorite music festivals?
Great question. Lightning in a Bottle is my favorite one I've been to in the United States so far, and
Hmm.
the whole world
Was
that
this
I've
your
been.
first year there?
No, it was my second year. I went 2 years ago, first year,
Okay,
and then
cool.
favorite one I've been to in the whole world is in Costa Rica. Envision is
Hmm.
amazing. It's a week long, like I talked about, and it's a transformational festival like Lightning in a Bottle. So it's not just music; it's yoga and workshops and cacao ceremonies and ecstatic dance and just the whole thing. And it was just amazing. Right there on the beach,
Hmm.
so you could go from the festival, walk through the jungle to the beach, see the sunset, see the sunrises. Walk back to the festival, back and forth. It was just amazing, magical. So I'd
Hmm.
say those two are kind of my top. Um, Electric Forest was really cool, back in the Midwest, where I'm from. And yeah, those are kind of the highlights. I have a whole list of all the festivals I've been to. I don't want to pull it out because
Yeah.
those are the kind of my highlights.
Yeah, what makes those ones like particularly special to you? Like, what is it about them versus other festivals that maybe adds to your particular flavor or your personal
Mm-hmm.
favorite? Because I went to Lightning in a Bottle um, for the first time this last year, and for me personally, I think
Mm-hmm.
it was the most like relational festival that I've been to. Like, it was very people centric. Like, it was
Mm,
really about these connections that you were making with new people and
yeah.
the connections you were making with the people that you brought along with. There's a lot of opportunity to meet and connect and play.
Yep.
That while I love EDC, and this isn't a shot against them, like EDC, for example, is just this, it's like party for 3 straight nights and you're just
Right.
going and it's crazy and there's lights everywhere and
Yep.
it's a blast. And it's not quite as like, you can't really go on as many just little side quests with somebody and,
Yep.
you know, relax on the beach and just have a conversation with them and stumble upon somebody's barbecue or whatever it might be, right?
Yeah.
So there's different strokes with each of these different festivals and different strengths and weaknesses. So what makes
Mhm.
like Envision, for example, like stand out to you compared to the other ones?
Yeah, I mean, you said a lot of it. You covered a lot of good points, I'd say, but it's the relational, the people thing is a good point. I agree with that a lot. I think that's a huge thing. One of my big passions and kind of strengths, I'd say, is connecting with people, talking with people. I have the most experience out of anything in my whole life in sales,
Hmm.
jobs, so customer service, sales types of roles. So it's just comes natural to me, and so I
Yeah.
love that. I think it's like really the best way I could summarize it is it's the vibe, it's the energy
Hmm.
of the festival. It's just the way they designed it, the way you could kind of like go into these random little side quests, little like treasures you'd find along the way,
Hmm.
just random things, random like the bodega,
Yeah.
lightning in the
Yeah.
bottle. Did you go into that place? Wild.
Yeah. Yeah. We went there on day one. It was super funny.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just so crazy, man. Like I was dying laughing at that thing. I'm like, you would never see this any other kind of festival, and that's so cool.
Yeah.
And yeah, I love the focus on not just party, 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 but hey, let's like learn about something interesting in the daytime. Let's do a
Mhm.
cool workshop. Let's do some yoga. Let's, you know, the balance
Yeah.
of like, let's not party our faces off so hard, which
Mhm.
is great. I love it. I've been to EDC Vegas twice. Amazing, really wonderful.
Mhm.
But I just I don't know. It doesn't resonate with me as much. Yeah, it's like one of those like I feel like I went to it. I'm glad I did. I'm glad I experienced it, and I don't need to go back again.
Mm.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
I'm not saying anything bad about it. I really enjoyed it a lot, but I feel like I got what I needed to get out of it.
Mhm.
And I'm on to I love exploring new ones personally. I have a whole
Mm.
list of ones I want to go to, especially
Yeah.
nationally. There's so much out there. It's like there's
Yeah.
only so much you can do with time and energy and resources. So I'm going to pick new
Yeah.
ones, and cool, exciting, different ones versus the same ones over and over. But whatever, each to each their own. I
Yeah.
have nothing bad to say about EDC. It's amazing, amazing, huge production. I've never seen fireworks shows anywhere else
Oh
like
my
that
gosh.
in my
No,
life.
you'll never see fireworks shows like anything like that. That's just spectacular. And like for the audience who hasn't been to EDC, they put on what, like 3 or 4 of them a night, and
Yeah.
they are just the entire 500 or whatever it is, 100,000 people that are there just all stop and watch whatever you're doing. It's the most magical thing you can imagine.
Yeah, I just got
Yeah.
goosebumps, honestly, just you describing it because that's it.
Yeah.
Everybody stops, and it's like a sunset here in San Diego.
Yeah.
Everybody stops what they're doing. They go to the coast, and we watch the
Yeah.
sunset. It's like a
Yeah.
ritual. And so yeah, the fireworks were mind blowing. And just the whole
Yeah.
size of it all. 500,000 people go to EDC over the whole weekend. The main stage
Hmm.
has like 150,000 people in it at once.
Wow.
That's mind blowing. Because
That's
like
nuts. Yeah.
Envision has like 10,000 people in the whole festival. So it's very
Right.
much more
Much more
intimate.
intimate.
And, that's one thing I love
Mm.
about it too is like the random bump ins with people, without planning it. And you
Hmm.
just bump into people without
Yeah.
even trying, and this and that, and then it keeps happening, and just the whole magic
Yep.
of a festival, like how we ran into each other, didn't plan it.
Yeah.
We're like, hey,
Nope.
there you are.
Yep.
What's up, man?
Yep. Yeah. No, that was amazing. And I agree. I mean, that's anyone who's been to a festival, again, they will understand, but anyone who hasn't been, there are just these moments where, in a sea of hundreds of thousands of people or 30,000 people, however many there are, you will meet these people over and over again
Yep.
somehow throughout the entire crowd.
Right.
Or you'll see them, 2 years later at another festival, and you'll just be in the same spot somehow. And
Yep.
those moments are as profound, if not more profound, than the amazing concert that you might see,
Right.
or the experience with a loved one that you might have, or whatever. They're just these moments of like sheer awe because of the synchronicity that happens in your life in that moment.
Yep.
And it's truly special.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And I don't know what exactly it always means when you these synchronicities and magical things, but there's something to it, and I think any little synchronicity, any little time you see 11:11 on the clock or whatever, 3:33, whatever, I think there's something to all of that stuff. It's I kind of take it as like if you see those numbers all the time, it's kind of like a confirmation from the universe or whatever that you're on the right path, and just to like keep going. That's how I interpret it. I don't know. I don't know if that makes sense, but it feels good to me. So
yeah. No, one of my favorite things to think about with that kind of thing is like, maybe the universe is like sending me a signal, right? And like maybe that is like one possible universe. But even if I don't believe in anything spiritual, right? It's like that idea is still useful to me, right? Because it's like it's like a positive little free boost of encouragement that I get to keep going down my own path and keep doing the things that I, believe in, and, paying attention or asking important questions. And, I think sometimes even with like astrology, for example, it's like on one hand, you can be like, oh, there's all these really cool things. Or maybe it's just like a really, really awesome, like Rorschach test, right? Because by the time you really get into astrology, it gets so complex. Maybe you could kind of be any and all of these things, right? But it kind of just gives you a tool to reflect back about what is resonating and what's not, and get a sense of who you are that helps you make clarity on, getting better decisions through life. I think there's some reason that stuff has stood around through so many years of criticism and judgment, and
for sure.
Whether it's true or not, there's some level of practicality to it.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think you can live your life by it necessarily, but you can definitely get some interesting patterns and like insights about yourself, and that makes sense. It really explains why that part of me or whatever. But I don't think you can. I'm fascinated by astrology. I've been getting into it deeper lately. It resonates a lot with me, honestly. For anybody out there that's into astrology, I'm a Scorpio sun, Cancer moon, Pisces rising, so I'm all water signs.
Nice.
And that really resonates with me. I'm a very emotional, I feel everything, very intuitive type of a person, and that's me. So
nice.
Astrology's got that, and it goes much deeper than that, obviously, but depending on each sign and whatever. But I was going to say about festivals, just recently I was at Day Trip in LA on Sunday, and there was 2 people there that one of my friends had brought. It was their first time taking MDMA, first festival. And I love those experiences. That's like one of my passions, of like bringing people to their first experience of like, well, get ready to get your mind blown. I've been saying for years, ever since my first experience at EDC Chicago 11 years ago, I said, whoa, if everybody in this planet could take MDMA and go to a music festival, we'd have a totally different planet, and I get this reconfirmation over and over again. Just on Sunday, these guys were like, whoa, this is amazing. This was mind blowing. I'm so happy. I love this. This is just, speechless. And it's like, this is amazing. And this is just going to keep growing. And I can't wait to see where this whole festival scene goes, because it hasn't been around for very long. It's just relatively kind of new. So it's like, wow, where is this all going to go? And I would love to create a festival of my own one day, like a small little intimate, very focused on healing, and like bringing people together. That's what I love doing. Great music,
Very
great
cool.
food, healing modalities, people, dancing, music. What else is life about? So,
Yeah, no, for sure.
yeah,
Yeah, I want to make my own festival too, and I have this idea of kind of like you and I were talking about. I can love the side quests more than anything, and so I want to create like a festival that's like almost like all side quests
that's
and have it
cool.
be almost like you're like stepping into a video game of sorts, where it's
That's
like
cool.
you maybe have some sort of large goal that you're meant to accomplish throughout the festival, but then there are like a zillion other things that all pull you in different directions and
Yeah,
have you learn new things and have you just go on, I don't know, your own kind of role playing journey throughout this like festival
yeah,
experience.
yeah. I love that.
So that would
It's really
that would be,
cool.
yeah,
That's a
yeah, I
great,
think it would be
great idea.
super fun.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
thanks,
like
man.
that.
Um, what are you mentioned like a couple of festivals you have like on in the future? Like, what are some of the big ones that you're excited about going to, or really looking forward to, or want to go to?
I would say, well, I mean, it's not really a festival, but Burning Man is one that I
Hmm.
still need to experience. And, it's way beyond just music and art, I know, but it's
Yeah.
been on my list, for a few years now. So that's a big one. So many friends,
Nice.
that's when you kind of know it's like the energy of Burning Man has come into my life so much over the last few years. I have so many friends that I've met that have gone like 8, 10 times. They're like hardcore burners, and we like
Hmm.
really vibe together. I'm like, okay, these are the kind of people that go to Burning Man. Maybe I should be there
Yeah.
too. So that's a big one,
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah. I'm
And
going
then,
to my first one this year.
oh, awesome, that'll be great.
Yeah. I'm very excited and it's for same exact reasons. Like I tend to vibe a lot with people who end up being burners or who have been burners, and I'm like that's a big part of the community that I'm wanting to build out here in Seattle, and
Yep,
I'm really excited to go out there and do that.
that's great. Now I'm excited for you.
Yeah, thanks,
And
man.
then so that's a big one. And then Tomorrowland in Belgium is a huge one just
Hmm.
because it's massive and it'd be cool to go to Belgium.
Yeah.
I haven't been there. And then Shambhala in Canada is a big,
Oh, dude, Shams is amazing. Yeah,
yeah,
you got to go. You would love Shambhala. Yeah,
yeah,
it is. There is. Yeah, it is. There's nothing like Shams. I mean, it's just it's different not being in the States. Canada has a very different relationship with substances.
right.
Like it's a completely alcohol free festival.
Oh,
So
cool.
they will like strip search your car for alcohol, like literally take off door panels and stuff. And there's just nothing like it because of that. Like it really completely changes the vibe in a way that, like Lightning in a Bottle, there was very low alcohol usage compared to other festivals I've been to.
Yep.
And I find the ones that use alcohol less and less, like are really the ones that I'm more attracted to because the substance changes the chemistry of the people that you're around. It
Yep.
totally does. And
Yep.
alcohol is definitely the one that I would prefer to be around the least, with just the
Yep.
way that it changes people and how they end up behaving on that. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree. And it's the way of the future, honestly. I think, in every state that's legalized cannabis, alcohol sales are
Mm-hmm.
down like 15% or something like that,
Hmm.
which is crazy. I'm sure that's a few years ago. I remember that stat. I'm sure it's even worse now, the decline. I notice anytime I go out to like nightclub type places, or I've been a part of like tables, friends, whatever, nobody's even
Mm-hmm.
touching the alcohol. Everybody's doing
Yeah.
every other substance except for drinking, like the Cali
Yeah.
sober type of like, I don't drink. I just do, every other
Yeah.
substance besides it.
Yep.
And it's like, yeah, it's fascinating. I have no doubt that it's going to continue to decline as everything else, raises.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a big one I'm excited for. And then, yeah, there's some other ones I can think of, like Boom, Portugal. I've heard that's an amazing one.
Hmm.
That's on the full moon. There's some other ones like in Eastern Europe. I'm Albanian, so there's one in
Ah.
Albania that my cousin just told me about. It's a whole week long. There's one in Croatia called Dimensions that I've heard is amazing. There's
Hmm.
a few in Amsterdam I've heard about. Can't think of the names right now that are supposed to be
Hmm.
amazing. So yeah, those are kind of the big ones that I can think of right
Yeah.
now.
Have you seen the one in Thailand? It was the first time I've heard about it, but I guess it's been around for like 2 or 3 years. Where I think it's 3 days. It's similar to kind of an EDC kind of vibe, but it's like a water music festival, and so it's like people are. It's like it's kind of imagine being at a water park,
Wow.
but a music festival is what it looked like. Like people are standing in like a sea of water basically with a stage, and they're pouring water and shooting it at it was like I've never
Oh,
seen anything like it. It fascinated me. I was like,
wow.
that looks really fun.
Sign me
Yeah.
up though. I'm sold. And I'm also sold about the Shambhala no alcohol. That's fascinating. I did not know that. I love that
Yeah,
very much.
it's amazing. Yeah, that was one of the things that sold me on it. I mean, it's yeah, there's I'm writing about it in my book, but there's really nothing like Shams. It's a very very special place for sure.
What are you writing a book about? And then I'll tell you the book that I'm writing about, what that's about.
Yeah. So in 2022, basically from November 2021 to November 1st, 2022, I had a personal goal to go see 50 concerts in a single year.
Oh,
And
wow.
so when I did that, I ended up going to 54, and I went to 9 music festivals across the country.
Wow.
I counted one day of a music festival as one concert because I wanted to like hedge my bets and like not give anybody any like wiggle room on
Right.
like, saying, that doesn't count or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and I figured if anything, I could like, if I fell short of my goal, I could be like, well, maybe I could count a festival as like 1.5 per day or something like that. But I
Mm,
ended up hitting 54 in total.
wow.
And it was just an incredibly life-changing experience for me. I up to that point, I really didn't know what I loved, and I had done a bunch of personal growth stuff. Done a bunch of therapy. I'd done a ton of meditation,
Hmm.
but I hadn't really done a lot of things like just for fun. And I
Mm,
took that journey because I was like, this is something that I love more than anything. It was right after COVID, so it was just like a
perfect.
lot of pent up energy. That I
Oh,
didn't
yeah.
I didn't do anything for a year and a half,
Yeah.
and I went to my first rave here at Base Canyon in 2021, and
Nice.
it just blew me away in a way that I had never expected. And you know, I had done substances and stuff before, but it was really the community and the way the people were that started to
Yep.
change me in a really profound way. And then I went to EDC Vegas in 2021 in October, a couple months later, and
Oh, I was
that
there.
was when I was like, I'm gonna. Oh, were you?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Nice.
so I was just like, I'm gonna do as much of this as I can in one year, and I basically chose 50 because it was a little bit less than once per week. And
Mm,
yeah, and it was just a blast. It changed my life, and that's why I'm writing a book. It
that's
inspired me to start this podcast and all the things. So yeah,
that's cool, man. That's going to be a great book to read. Can't wait to read that.
yeah, yeah. I'm excited for
That's
it.
awesome. That's really cool. Yeah. Wow. I have so many questions for you about that. Like how you kept that up, how you maintained, how you like, substance wise, how that
Yeah,
went for you, how like burnt out were you by the end of that? Like so many questions.
yeah. I mean, yeah. Well, I mean, we have your podcast, so I mean,
Right. Yeah, that's
I
right.
gotta
We
come
can get
on to
into
yours,
that
and you
there.
can, yeah, you can ask me all the questions on there. But yeah, I mean, and I'm happy to answer some now too. But like, yeah, I mean, as far as like the health part of it, I mean, I went into it being very healthy. Like I spent a lot of time in the biohacking space. I had a
Mm,
lot of meditation experience. So
mm,
like I had a lot of wellness and understanding of my body
yep.
very, very well. I mean, I was an athlete growing up, so
Mm,
I've always had a pretty good connection with my body as a whole. And
yep.
then honestly, a big part of it was my buddy Tim, who unfortunately, like the podcast I recorded with him got lost. He was the one who was telling you before we started recording that
Right.
like we recorded one, and then unfortunately he left early or not before I knew really, and so it didn't upload, and so we lost his
Right.
part of it. So I need to re-record with him again. But he's been to every single Coachella, and
Wow.
so he was my like festival guide to my first festival when I went to Coachella in 2018, which
Nice.
was like Beyonce's, Coachella. And
Nice.
I didn't really know what I was getting into there, but he was just, without me realizing it even until later, I learned so many good tools on how to navigate festivals because of him. Because he's like, find a central meetup point. When you
Mm,
first get to a festival, eat when you first get there. Like just
mm,
all of these like layered things of being like, you got to understand it's a marathon, not a sprint, and just doing
yeah.
that. Right. And I would
Yeah.
see other friends who would go, and it's like day one and they're already, completely splashed. And like kind of the rest of the festival is ruined for them because they're
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
taking care of themselves. Right.
Right.
I think
Yeah.
it also helps that I really don't drink much
Mm-hmm.
at all. And so, I wasn't having alcohol in my system throughout a lot of these processes.
Mm-hmm.
I took care of myself with like sauna when I would come back.
Yeah.
And, I did my best to prioritize sleep as best I could
Yep.
and eat and do all the stuff we talked about, really. Like,
Yep.
I
Yep.
think a lot of that was how I managed it. But
That's
my
awesome.
biggest regret from the whole thing, I will say, is I wish that I had been in therapy while I was doing that, because it was
Mm,
so, to your point with the amount of like change and then integration. I'm
yeah.
in therapy now, and I was in therapy last year for basically a year after that journey.
Yep.
And it was like every therapy session, I just had so much to unpack, because there was just so much that I was going through. And I wish I had been utilizing that as a process throughout that journey to integrate at a healthier pace throughout it.
And thank you for saying that, because that brings up a point I forgot to make earlier when I was talking about my friend with like the whole like intention and integration. One thing he mentioned, that from all the psychedelic journeys he's done, what's helped him the most for his integration is therapy, is
Mm-hmm.
working with the therapist and on a consistent basis being able to integrate all of this stuff. So that's perfect that you
Absolutely.
said that, because that's exactly right. And yeah, wow, that's impressive. And yeah, that's great you had your guide there, because you could have learned the hard way on some of those, I'm sure,
Yeah.
like, oh, I didn't
Yeah.
want to do it that way. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
amazing. That's really cool. I've definitely never met anybody on that level of festival. So that's really cool. Um,
Mm.
yeah. So my book it's called Profits Over People: How Healthcare Became
Mm.
Sick Care.
Okay.
And it's about kind of past, present, future. The past is kind of the
Mm.
whole history of medicine and how that all came about, and the whole natural medicine history, and then the way that the pharmaceuticals got involved, and the whole AMA, and all of the history that a lot of people don't know about, and the Rockefellers getting involved and all of that.
Mm.
And then the present was kind of about the whole, like, everything that happened with COVID, everything that's been going
Mm.
on these last few years. Just, you know, us being lied to basically by our government heavily, and Pfizer making $100 billion in profit. Fun fact, by the way, I learned this recently. Uh, if you
Mm.
take all the top five Fortune 500 companies and you take the top 10 biggest pharmaceutical companies, if you add up their profit, it's bigger than all the other 490 companies combined in their
Mm.
profit.
Wow. That's nuts.
Nuts. Yeah. Um, so just talking about that, the whole, like, everything going on right now with cannabis legalization, with psychedelics, all the
Mm.
stuff that's kind of happening now. And then my whole kind of punchline of the book is disruptive innovation, right? So
Mm.
Netflix disrupted Blockbuster, right?
Right.
Uber and Lyft, they disrupted taxi companies. Airbnb disrupted hotels. And
Right.
so my whole punchline of the book is like, natural holistic medicine is a disruptive innovation in healthcare.
Mm.
It is the
Yeah.
inevitable. It's the way it's always been done. It's the way it's going to come back to. And people are slowly starting to kind of realize that, like, oh, maybe these pills aren't actually healing me. Maybe I don't need them and I can do it this other way. And wow, what
Mm-hmm.
an amazing, idea. like, yeah, once again, time and a place for everything, you know. But the whole philosophy of natural medicine is like, why not try all these other things first? Lifestyle is like 90% of disease, cause. Like, not your lifestyle is the cause of like 90% of diseases. Same with stress. It's the cause of most diseases. So it's like, what are we doing about that? Things that we have control over, right? Our lifestyle, our stress, we don't necessarily, but stress management. What are you doing to
Mm-hmm.
manage your stress? So it's try those things first, and then, okay, I tried them. Okay, now let me add on. We have this therapeutic order in pharmaceutical and naturopathic
Mm.
medicine, and it's like, start at the bottom, start with the basics, change your diet, sleep more, drink enough water. Okay, next level, start doing some energetic therapeutics, do some acupuncture, do some chiropractic, whatever. Next level, go after like your organ specific. You have heart issues, you have liver issues, whatever. You work your way up to then finally, okay, pharmaceutical interventions and then surgery, the very top. Kind of like working your way up. Is it necessary sometimes? Absolutely, it helps a lot of people, but why jump to that? When there's all these other things you can try first. That's all. So
Yeah. Yeah. No, very cool. I mean, I think that'll be definitely a fascinating book. I mean, I think that journey from, like you said, healthcare to sick care is something that's really something that I've seen to be very, very true.
yeah,
Just not so much in, I don't know where people are or where you stand on this. I don't necessarily believe that there's like a bunch of like evil, I don't know, corrupt people trying to do something in particular, but like I think a lot of it is like, just the system or the type of thinking that we produce, right, creates these
yeah,
systems, and then it creates effects that aren't intentional, right? Where it's
right,
like we end up doing this thing, oh, we want to get rid of these symptoms without, like you said, really thinking about, well, what is the cause of that symptom that leads to these pieces that allows us to understand how to actually get healthy. It's funny. I tell um, my friend and a colleague with is he works in the healthcare space as well. Is
mm-hmm.
The one thing anybody remembers from seventh grade biology is that the powerhouse of the cell is the mitochondria.
Right,
And what's ironic about that is a lot of times it's just seen as this useless piece of information. But like if people really understood how powerful that information is, it would be life changing. Because when you do take care of your mitochondria, when you know how to do that, you can change the rest of your life in a very profound way.
yep, yep, exactly. Yeah, I mean that's why. I remember a few years ago going to the sauna at the gym. There's almost nobody in there. Now it's
Mm-hmm.
like full. You can barely
Mm-hmm.
go into the sauna because it's blown up in popularity. And same thing with like cold plunging. Nobody would have ever
Mm-hmm.
imagined cold plunging 10 years ago. That was like unheard of, unless you were very specific in the communities, whatever, Wim Hof, or, you just were. Hydrotherapy is therapy with water, which comes from Germany.
Yeah.
And they were, putting people in cold baths and in the river and stuff to cure them of all kinds of things, 100 years
Mm-hmm.
ago. And so it's like, oh, maybe they figured some stuff out back then, and we should take note. And so, yeah, cold exposure. Wow, what an amazing, simple therapy.
Yeah.
And it's,
Yeah.
you see all these gyms now blowing up, like adding in cold plunges left and right. Like, wow, it's pretty cool to see, that just the simple stuff
Mm-hmm.
is making such a big like explosion out there. So I love it. It's all great stuff, that, is helping people on the simple level that they can do. Not all medicine needs to be super expensive supplements and really expensive lab tests and crazy, ingredients that are exotic. It's the simple things like grounding, getting enough sunlight, moving your body, drinking enough waters, getting enough sleep, your thoughts. We haven't even touched this
Mm-hmm.
topic that much, but the mental health side of things is really the root cause of most things, is what I've found.
Hmm.
You could eat all the diet and do the supplements and do the workouts, but if you don't get the mental, emotional stuff, the limiting beliefs and just the deep traumas and things like worked on and cleared out. If you don't work on that
Yeah.
stuff, you're going to continue having issues. I've seen it time and time and time again. I
Yeah.
saw it with my own mother. That's what got me so passionate about the mind body connection, because she did all the right diets and workouts and all this stuff. But yet at 50 years old, 10 years ago, actually, to the day, actually, crazy. She sent a
Hmm.
text earlier. 10 years ago, she had a double bypass surgery, out of nowhere.
Wow.
And we were like, what the hell happened? And it was every doctor I've talked to ever since then has nothing to do with her diet. She was very healthy, never ate fast food, worked out, right? It was all mental, emotional. She kept all her
Wow.
emotions in, very stressed, very like didn't express herself, and so that's what caused her blockage in her artery. It's not the physical
Wow.
stuff, it's the mental, emotional stuff. And that's a whole field of study now that's proving the mind body connection. It's called psychoneuroimmunology, and it
Hmm.
literally is our mind body connection and how much our mind, our thoughts has an effect on our body And we know that very well through all the Joe Dispenza work, and so
Yeah.
it's what I've come time and time again. Diets are great, workouts awesome, whatever, that's great, it's all important, but the mental emotional is where like the majority of our focus should be. And it's oftentimes what's like ignored. It's kind of like, oh yeah, how's your stress? Good, okay, great. And the next question, it's like
Right.
like, okay, how about that could be the
Well, and
cause of all of your issues.
yeah. Well, and it's also interconnected, right? It's like
Right.
a big reason why I can't stop eating the cookie is because, on a day-to-day basis I get stressed, and that's my one coping mechanism because I'm not comfortable enough to sit with that really uncomfortable feeling
Yep.
of stress, right? And it's like,
Yep.
oh, okay, and there might be something underneath that I'm not wanting to feel, right? And so being
Mhm.
able to do that now, while I can avoid the cookie because I'm more comfortable with just tolerating this amount of stress, I know how to cope in other ways and have a healthy relationship. And at the same time, right, if I'm eating cookies all the day, that's causing my blood sugar to spike and my insulin response to change, and
Yep.
I am now becoming more anxious because of the candy that I just ate, right?
Yep.
And so there's always these like back and forth things with life where for me, I think one of the biggest things that I really believe in is just that it's all interconnected, right? Everything
Yeah.
that we do, whether it's how I think about things changes what I eat, and what I eat changes how I think about things. So
Yep. Yep.
doing everything I can with every aspect is key. And I think to your point, if you're doing everything and you're not taking care of the mental and emotional, you are leaving a huge factor on the plate. Because I 100% agree with you that like if you take care of the emotional and mental, that will ripple out
Right.
into everything else.
Exactly.
Almost always, it will allow you to develop better habits. It will naturally, you won't crave certain things anymore, crave being
Right.
around certain people anymore. You will change who you are because those things start to shift around you.
Yeah. 100%, man. Well said. And, I found it in my own journey. Like, what did I get out of meditation retreat and psychedelics and all these things? In a nutshell, especially Joe Dispenza, what did I get? A deeper level of self-love than I've ever felt for myself, by
Mm-hmm.
far. And what do you get when you have self-love and self-acceptance? Everything. From that, everything else flows. When you love yourself enough, you're like, oh, I don't really want to eat that fifth bag of,
Yeah.
whatever, fourth donut. And like, I'm good with the one donut, or whatever. Like, I don't need to binge,
Yeah.
100 grams of
Right.
sugar
Yeah.
tonight. Like, I feel pretty good. I'm just going to have, this piece of fruit instead. Like,
Mm-hmm.
like simple stuff like that. Like, the self-love and self-acceptance, I found that once you have that, everything else just flows. And that's been my journey. It's been amazing. I it's hard to put into words, honestly. Sometimes I have a lot of respect for people that are good at like verbalizing this ineffable psychedelic quality, of like these experiences that are like, whoa, that was amazing, but I don't know
Mm-hmm.
how to tell you about it. I
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I have a lot of respect for people that are good with that. But yeah, the self-love journey is, I think, what it's all about. And there's many
Agreed.
paths. One of my favorite phrases is many paths, one truth. And
Mm.
many paths to the self-love journey, but whatever that path is for you, I think just keep going down it. And I think it's, there's a lot of results to be had from that journey for
Yeah.
yourself and anybody
I
you come in
agree.
contact with.
Yeah. No, I agree. I had actually the CEO of Bioptimizers on my podcast a couple episodes back, Matt Gallant, and he echoed that same sentiment that self love is probably the single most important thing that you can do. It's not easy
Yep.
to really get to that true place of unconditional self love that we talked about, like MDMA can tap you into for a bit, but to really develop that, it's a lifetime of work to get there,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
a profound state, but it changes everything in a truly incredible way.
Definitely. Yeah. And with if you had to put some words to it all, I think my whole takeaway from most of my psychedelic experiences has been love, just unbelievable amounts of love and gratitude. And that's
Yeah.
it. And from there,
Yeah.
I feel like everything, flows from that. So once you tap
Yeah.
into that and really feel that, that's another thing I realized at Joe Dispenza is like you can intellectually know something, but when you actually like feel it is a different thing. Like with my ex,
100%.
I dealt with a lot of, cheating and lying. I got cheated on a bunch, and I thought I like
Uh,
forgave her intellectually. I did, but I didn't actually feel the forgiveness in my heart. And so that's why
yep.
it just never worked out. And there's all this resentment built up and all this stuff. And it just
Yep.
became very toxic, and it's
Yep.
because you have to really feel it. That heart brain coherence is where the real magic happens,
Hmm.
and so yeah, that's the power of all these practices, is getting your nervous system balanced again, parasympathetic, sympathetic. We're mostly all stuck on this sympathetic overdrive, fight or flight, stress
Hmm.
out of our minds, running from the tiger that's not there, and so it's like, how do we get back into the parasympathetic as much as possible? That's where the real healing
Yeah.
happens. And so how do we get there? That's the daily practices that, yeah, it's a lifelong journey for sure, but
Yeah.
one day at a
No,
time.
I, I 100% agree. And
you
I
know?
think with that note, Adrian, I think this was a really fabulous conversation. If people want to find out more about you, more about your work, more about Vitamin R, where can they go to follow you? Where do you want to send them?
Yeah. So yeah, this has been amazing. Thank you so much. I've loved it.
Yeah.
It's so a couple different places you could go on Instagram. My personal one is Dr. Adrian Mehmedi. That's
Hmm.
Mehmedi, Dr. Adrian Mehmedi, or also on Instagram, Take Vitamin R, and then the website is takevitaminr.com. And yeah, my podcast is called Healing Intentions. That's out on Spotify, Apple. And yeah, the book is coming, soon. I'm slowly writing it, but my
Hmm.
goal is to have it out, by the end of the year. And then yeah, it's been really amazing. Thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on. It was a pleasure having you.
Of course, man.
Ciao.
Thank you.